conservatives are very concerned with masculinity as a concept. And I came across this video today. It's from 2018, so it's a little bit old. We're seeing a bit of an older school PragerU here. Let's see here. Now, this is a video put out by Allie Beth Stuckley, who is a contributor on Fox News. She also has testified against abortion in front of Congress. She is basically an extreme hyper-religious zealot. And she's going to tell us how to make men masculine again. And I, for one, can't wait to learn about manly men doing man things.
Rape, murder, war.
Make men masculine again. And that's how you're going to open this up. Okay. I'm not going to lie. I wasn't expecting that. Coming out strong here, okay?
They all have one thing in common. Men.
Oh no! This is almost exactly the opposite of how I would open up a video if I was doing like conservative propaganda. This is like the opposite of how you sell your point here. But okay, continue.
Aggression, violence, ambition unchecked by conscience, all the stuff of toxic masculinity, right? And the solution is obvious. Make men less toxic. Make men less masculine. Make men more like women.
That's not what toxic masculinity means, actually, at all. But I'm sure we'll get there. No, the solution is to just raise a generation of men who don't believe ideas about masculinity that wind up hurting themselves and others. Raising a generation of women who don't believe that men are just inherently like violent monsters. You know? Like the idea that men are inherently violent is a conservative one. Right? The idea that men can only effectively communicate with violence is a conservative one. The solution here is just to like raise men and women to not believe these toxic behaviors are inherent to men, because they're not.
But I'm here to tell you that that way of thinking is not only wrong, it's dangerous. Here's why. When you try to make...
I agree, which is why, again, people aren't arguing that men should be women, actually.
Men more like women, you don't get less toxic masculinity. You get more. Why? Because bad men don't become good when they stop being men.
What is this? The straw man that... What is the straw man that has been constructed for this video? Like, can we... I want to write them... I want to write down the points as we go. Okay? Just real quick. I need to open up a notepad doc so we can, like, reverse engineer the kind of person you would have to be the person she's arguing about in this video. Okay?
Murder, war. They all have one thing in common. Men. Aggression, violence, ambition unchecked by conscience, all the stuff of toxic masculinity, right? And the solution is obvious. Make men less toxic.
Okay, so the problem is that men are violent and prone to rape, so you need to make them into women, and that somehow fixes the problem, because question mark equals profit.
Make men less masculine. Make men more like women. But I'm here to tell you that that way of thinking is not only wrong, it's dangerous. Here's why. When you try to make men more like women, you don't get less toxic masculinity. You get more.
Okay. I want to know what she thinks toxic masculinity is, because she hasn't explained that term yet. Something tells me she's not going to, because I think a lot of her argument is probably going to rely on just people hearing the term toxic masculinity and coming to their own conclusions about what that means. Toxic straw masculinity? No!
Why? Because bad men don't become good when they stop being men.
Okay, so again, the idea here being that the person she's arguing thinks that bad men do become good when they stop being men, okay?
They become good when they stop being bad. Aggression, violence, and unbridled ambition can't be eliminated from the male psyche. They can only be harnessed.
Again, I need you all to understand that essentially this is indistinguishable from like the idea, like the arguments made, the essentialist arguments made about like, oh, black people are just inherently more aggressive than white people. This is just this is just inherently tied to black people's psyches. You can't do that. There's a warrior gene, don't you know? Like, this essentialism is bad. Like, it leads to racism and it leads to sexism. Like, the essentialization here doesn't exist. There are plenty of men who don't inherently have tendencies towards unbridled ambition, aggression, and violence.
And when they are harnessed, they are tools for good, not for harm. The same masculine traits that bring destruction.
Yeah, they can only be harnessed. Don't fetishize all of them, right? My God, this is wild.
Also defeat tyranny.
What? What? Sorry. You know what? Maybe we just need to go through this video.
Violence and unbridled ambition can't be eliminated from the male psyche. They can only be harnessed. And when they are harnessed, they are tools for good.
Tools for good, not for harm. So... by not embracing masculinity, you are ignoring positive tools that could help.
Not for harm. The same masculine traits that bring destruction also defeat tyranny. The traits that foster greed.
Masculinity is the only thing that could win wars.
Also build economies. The traits that drive men to take foolish risks also drive men to take heroic risks.
Again, these are all things women can do.
The answer to toxic masculinity isn't less masculinity. It's better masculinity. And we know what that looks like.
Wait! She's correct. She's correct. I don't know how she managed to say a correct point, but she arrived at one. The solution to toxic masculinity is better non-toxic masculinity. No one's trying to feminize men in order to make them good. The solution is just non-toxic masculinity. Like removing the toxic elements from masculinity that we pass on to our children.
It's a young man opening the door for a girl on their first date. It's a father working long hours to provide for his family.
Okay, wait. The issue I have with this, right? With these two examples.
a better masculinity. And we know what that looks like. It's a young man opening the door for a girl on their first date.
This is a nice thing to do, but if you feel compelled, like it's your masculine duty to open a door for someone, that's actually bad. Like, you're gonna come across as like a weirdo in that situation if you are investing your identity as a man in like your ability to open doors first. You know, like that's not healthy, actually.
It's a father working long hours to provide for his family.
Father working long hours to provide for his family. Really great. That is really great. But also, you can be masculine without doing this. You know? You can be masculine and like maybe work reasonable hours to provide for your family. Like the issue with toxic masculinity is using these as immutable standards for what it means to be a man, because then that makes men feel like they have failed on an existential level when they aren't able to work those long hours to provide for their families, you know? Or makes them feel like a failure when they do take time off to spend time with their families. Yeah, I loved when my dad worked all the time and never came home to see me. Yeah, exactly. It harms your family. It harms the social structure when you prioritize your masculine inclinations over, like, being there for your family. For the fun times, too.
It's a soldier risking his life to defend his country.
Again, women have also done this for millennia.
The growing problem in today's society isn't that men are too masculine. It's that they're not masculine enough. When men...
Okay. You arrived at a correct point, and then you immediately are just veering off course. Okay. Well, you know, broken clocks.
Men embrace their masculinity in a way that is healthy and productive. They are leaders, warriors, and heroes. When they deny their masculinity, they run away from responsibilities, leaving destruction and despair in their wake.
I just want to point out here
when they
that leaders, warriors, and heroes, even if you are, you know, typically considered one of the good leaders, one of the good warriors, one of the good heroes, also typically leave destruction in their wake.
Despair in their wake.
That's typically a thing they do.
Everywhere. 1 in 4 fathers now lives apart from his children. And children who grow up without a dad are generally more depressed than their peers who have a mother and a father. They are at far greater risk for incarceration, teen pregnancy, and poverty.
I wonder if maybe the poverty that results from a single parent home might have something to do. There might be a big correlation between the poverty element and then the teen pregnancy and the incarceration rates and the prevalence of mental illness when it comes to depression. Maybe something tells me that maybe in a capitalist society that requires 2 parents to be working and supporting each other to have like a family, I wonder if maybe having only a 1-parent household might, you know, make that household more prone to poverty and thus the other increased risk factors. Poverty and the lack of time to take care of a kid. Well, that's exactly. Like time is money in a capitalist society, right? Like the lack of time is a symptom of the poverty. Which, you know, sucks.
71% of high school dropouts are fatherless. Of all...
Yeah, because they're dropping out to go and work so that they can support their family that has a 1-income household.
The rocks upon which we build our lives, family is the most important. And we are called to recognize and honor how critical every father is to that foundation. That was said by then Senator Barack Obama in 2008. If we are honest with ourselves, he went on, we'll admit that too many fathers are missing from too many lives and too many homes. As much as we try to deny the need for real masculine strength in society, there's no denying its necessity. Healthy families
No one's saying we don't need men anymore. That literally no one's saying that except maybe lesbians.
and strong communities depend on the leadership and bravery of good men. Yet,
Except that we also have leadership and bravery from good women. Like you can have that from women too.
the current trend is to feminize young men in the hopes of achieving some utopian notion of equality and peace.
Citation needed. Please, I want you to cite the academic article where they are like talking about the need to feminize men to achieve a utopian society.
And it starts at the earliest ages. In the school classroom, boys are invariably the problem. On the playground, aggressive games like dodgeball have long been banished.
Okay, boys are not always the problem. The issue is we socialize girls to be quieter. That's the issue. Like boys typically when they're young are allowed to be loud and exuberant, whereas girls are typically dissuaded from that type of expression. So that's a socially created problem, which has, I believe, been getting better. Aggressive games have been banished. There are plenty of aggressive games that still occur on the playground all the time. The issue is like, yeah, they've weeded out certain games over time because of a prevalence of injuries. Like, yeah, the argument here that like, oh, we're getting rid of men by not having violent enough games is wild in a time period where we have like Call of Duty and like every 10-year-old is playing Call of Duty. Like, what are you talking about?
We tell young men that their intrinsic desire to compete is wrong. Everybody gets a trophy.
No one says desire to compete is wrong. The people giving us the trophies are like adults. Like the people giving the trophies are like adult people, you know? Like everybody's getting a trophy because they're like 5 years old and they're learning how to like participate in sporting events. That obviously that doesn't carry over into like high school athletics. So what she's talking about here is like literal like babbies just starting school. You know? Like when you get into middle and high school, you get out of the everyone gets a trophy era.
Don't run up the score. This anti-male tilt continues on through higher education and into
Wait, don't run up the score is that's an anti-male thing? That's an anti-masculine thing? Like teaching children how to be like good and honorable winners is apparently anti-man? This is actually insane.
to the workplace. It has created millions of tentative men, unhappy women, and confused boys and girls. Here's a secret that every woman knows. Women want real men. Men they can count on and, yes, look up to. No amount of feminist theory will change that. I don't know any woman.
I don't know that like feminist theory tells you that you can't look up to men. Like I've studied feminist theory in college and like that's not what it says.
At any age, who is attracted to a passive man who looks to her to be his provider, protector, and leader.
But Jack, all boys are required to get CTEs by the end of high school. True. I forgot.
Every woman I know wants a strong, responsible man.
That's because you don't know any lesbians. That's because you're a conservative bigot who doesn't hang out with the gays.
A consequence of a social construct or cultural pressure. It's innate.
Being strong and responsible is an innate characteristic? If you're if you're raised by wolves on a deserted island, being strong and responsible is an innate characteristic you have. Citation needed.
The devaluation of masculinity won't end well because feminine, passive men don't stop evil.
Feminine, passive men don't stop evil? What are you talking about? Like, yeah, feminine passive men don't stop evil, chat. Ignore the fact that these are World War II GIs who defeated fascism. And anyway, I feel like I rest my case with this picture alone.
Men don't defend, protect, or provide. Passive men don't lead. Passive men don't do the things we have always needed men to do for society to thrive. In his book, The Abolition of Man, English social philosopher C.S. Lewis writes about this problem. He describes the tension between cerebral man and visceral man. By his intellect, Lewis explains, man is mere spirit, and by his appetite, mere animal.
I don't know if C.S. Lewis would be considered a social philosopher. C.S. Lewis would be considered a, like a religious thinker. But also, this doesn't mean anything. By his intellect, man is mere spirit, and by his appetite, mere animal. But like, you're talking about your intellect. You're talking about your brain, your mind, the meat in your skull that is capable of cognition. You're not just mere spirit and also appetite of mere animal. You're both. You both have the ability to like think things through and have like logical consistency, and you have base animal instincts to like eat food and take a shit.
We need both. Take away one, and you're left with a man who's either weak or wicked. And in a world of wickedness, weak men are nothing more than enablers.
Also, I don't know anyone who describes C.S. Lewis as a social philosopher. Like, people talk about him as like a, being a literary scholar, being like an English professor, being extraordinarily good when it comes to, breaking down languages. And they also talk about him in the context of religion as like a theologian, like a religious thinker. They don't describe him as an expert on sociology. This is a different field, and he's being misrepresented here.
Of wicked men. Rape, murder, war. They all have two things in common. Bad men who do the raping, murdering, and warring, and weak men who won't stop them. We need good men who will.
Yeah, the thing that would fix rape is if we had more good men to stop the bad rapes. What are you talking about? The rapes are being done in private by people who are typically considered by their communities as good men. But yeah, no, I guess women can't stop any of those problems. No, sir. We gotta wait for a man to save us. I'm comfortably rooted in my masculinity, but as a hyper-empathetic, undiagnosed autistic, I am always exhausted by dudes being bros, performing for each other, and needing/expecting immediate validation. I agree. There is also something extraordinarily charming to me about, like, men who have genuine platonic relationships with their bros, you know? Like, there's something like, that I like about that. It's a hard dynamic to get right, because often what you're describing is kind of the default, like, posturing for each other for social clout kind of, like, situation. But yeah.
It's not masculinity that's toxic, it's the lack of it. I'm Allie Stuckey for Prager University.
My God. What a shit show.